everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shani and on this channel we talk about candle making and selling candles online. Are you starting out a candle making business and feel like everybody's talking a completely different language to you? By the end of this video, you will have my top 10 candle making terms for beginners. If you stick around to the end, I also have a free downloadable glossary which gives you the ultimate list of candle making terms. As a bonus, I've also included the regulations and standards you would need to be compliant with as a business if you wanted to sell in the UK, EU, US and Canada. Hit the subscribe button and the bell if you are a budding candle maker looking to start and grow your own business. Like most new candle makers, you've probably come to the realization that candle making is so much more than choosing a pretty container and choosing a lovely scent. As a beginner, getting into the candle making world can be really overwhelming and daunting. I know, I was there like just a few months ago. I thought it was going to be super easy. I joined tons of Facebook groups about candle making and then I realized I only knew about 1% of what needs to be known if you want to start a business and make really good candles. As I started my candle making journey, I went through a steep learning curve. I documented a ton of information and I really wanted to share it with new makers. So here are my top 10 candle making terms. Number 1, FO and EO. FO stands for fragrance oils. These are synthetic, basically man-made scented oils which you add to your candle to give it scent. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of different varieties of fragrance oils you can get on the market. One of the first things you'll do as a candle maker is test the percentage of fragrance oil you'll need in a candle to get it smelling its best, either lit or unlit. Fragrance oils are generally the most economical way to scent your candles. If you want to market your candle as more natural, many makers go down the EO route or essential oil route. Essential oils are extracted directly from plants, either through cold pressing or distillation. Because it's such an intensive process, it basically means that it's reflected in the price. So essential oils tend to be more expensive than fragrance oils. Essential oils are commonly supplied in singular scents, so like you'd get a peppermint smell or a mint smell, and this makes it ideal for blending your own custom scent. Number 2, fragrance load. The fragrance load, or the fragrance percentage, is the manufacturer's recommendation of the maximum amount of fragrance oil you can put in a particular wax. The fragrance load varies from wax to wax, so it's really important to have a look at the product specifications before you start making your candles. Like all candle makers, we all want to have candles with amazing scent throws. So as a beginner, to me, I thought I'd max out on my fragrance load. So regardless of what the scent was, I was putting in the maximum load that my wax could take. While in theory it made sense, practically when I started to test, I realized I could achieve amazing scent throws with a lower percentage fragrance oil and just choosing the right wick. This was like a revelation to me because it just meant that I could still have the high performing candle that I wanted, but not having to unnecessarily put cost into the candle that just didn't need to be there. Number 3, FT, CT and HT. FT stands for fragrance throw and is the name given to the release of scent from a candle. It's classified into CT, which is cold throw, and HT, which is hot throw. CT, or cold throw, is the release of fragrance when a candle is at room temperature, unlit, and basically the candle is solid. Of course, it goes without saying, if you're selling a scented candle, you want the hot throw to be amazing, but the cold throw is really important too. It's basically your customer's first impression of your candle, and it could sway their decision of whether they buy it or not. Getting the best hot throw and cold throw really comes down to testing. The 3 main parameters I'm looking at when I'm testing out my hot throw and cold throw is the type of wax, the type of wick and size, and the percentage of fragrance oil. Number 4, CLP Regulations. CLP stands for Classification, Labeling and Packaging, and it's really important to be compliant to this regulation if you want to sell in the EU and the UK. As a candle manufacturer and supplier, making sure your products are correctly labeled is crucial to your business. If your product does not have a CLP label or is just incorrectly done, you would actually be breaking the law and would be liable if something went wrong because your insurance would be void. So it's really important to get that right. Regulation states that all new products with hazardous substances need to be properly labeled. In our case, the hazardous substance will be the fragrance oils. Now, most good fragrance oil suppliers will already have this information for you and they'll have a CLP template. I will do another video to get further in detail with CLP because it's just a bit of a minefield and not something I can do justice in this video. But the most important takeaway, I think, is to think of CLP in the same way you would think of food packaging or other hazardous substances like bleach or, cleaning detergent. It needs to be properly labeled just in case something goes wrong. For example, if a child ate a wax melt or drank a reed diffuser liquid and they have to go to hospital, the person treating that child would want the information very quickly. So it's important to have your CLP label at point of sale, so actually affixed onto your candle. If your product does not have any hazardous substances, then it does not need a CLP label. Number 5, flash points. Flash points are really important to know if you're planning to air freight your candles anywhere. If your fragrance oil has a low flash point, it cannot be transported via air because it gets so hot in the cargo. It would be a really big risk if it ever came in contact with a spark or a flame, which you would hope is not there on a plane, but I guess it's just mitigating the risk. Flash points are also really important if you're using gel wax to make gel candles, where it's recommended the fragrance oil flash point is above 77 degrees C. As a new maker, flash point had me really confused. I thought it was related to the temperature at which you couldn't go above when pouring your fragrance oil into your wax, but I realized I was completely wrong. Don't get me wrong, it does make a difference at which temperature you pour your fragrance oil in, but that's not actually what the flash point means. Let me know in the comment section below which term had you scratching your head and thinking, what the hell does this mean? Number 6, mushrooming. Mushrooming usually occurs when there's too much molten wax for the wick to burn, and basically causes a carbon buildup on the wick. So while it's quite normal to have a little bit of mushrooming, when you see massive mushrooms on a wick, it basically indicates that you've chosen the wrong wick size. Number 7, wicking. So wicking is basically the selection of the right wick, and it's probably the thing I've struggled the most with as a new maker. The best way to select the right wick is through testing. A wick that may work with one scent doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work with another scent, even if you keep everything the same, and that's the same container, the same wax, and the same percentage of fragrance oil. There are quite a few wick companies on the market, and they have different ranges which are suited for the type of wax you're using. I would really recommend going directly to the wick supplier to see what type of wick they'd recommend for the type of wax you're using. For example, I use Weedo wicks, so I go onto the Weedo website, and there's a really good tool where you can input the type of wax you're using and the container diameter, which will help you select the right wick. While it's a really great tool and can point you in the right direction, it doesn't eliminate the need for testing, because you can still have different performances between different fragrance oils. When testing your wicks, the best thing you can do is document everything. Write down the type of wick, the size of the wick, the fragrance oil you've used, its percentage, the wax, the hot throw you've experienced, the cold throw you've experienced. Like, there's just so much. Like, just write down everything you can possibly think about. Number 8, melt pool. The melt pool is the molten wax that surrounds the wick. When you have a really small melt pool, this basically shows your candle is not burning evenly and will cause your candle to tunnel. Tunneling is really annoying as a candle maker because it means your candle isn't burning efficiently and just wastes a ton of wax. What you're trying to achieve is a lovely balanced burn across the whole candle diameter. So you may not always achieve this in your first 4-hour burn, but the aim is to try and get it at least by the 2nd or 3rd burn. So basically your candle will burn down evenly and you won't have any wasted wax around the side. If you find that you have a really deep melt pool plus a mushrooming wick, this may be an indication that you need to wick down because your wick is too large. And the reason that's bad is because you're basically going to burn through your candle really quickly, and it's not as cost effective for your customer. Number 9, sinkholes. As the candle cools, it's natural for it to shrink a little bit. This is really normal and sometimes unavoidable. There are things you can do to help it from not shrinking as much. For example, you can preheat your container before pouring in the wax. I usually do this with a heat gun, but you can also put it in the oven just before you pour. You can also try pouring at a lower temperature, as some of the shrinkage has already occurred. If you're still having no luck, you can try a second pour method. So basically pour once, retain some of the wax, let your candle cool a bit, and then do a second pour, and that should fill any holes that you may see. Or alternatively, you can use a heat gun. If you do use a heat gun, be sure not to go too hot, as you can burn off fragrance oil and it will leave the tops of your candles with no scent. Finally, number 10, flame length. The flame length of your candles is really important for the safety of your customers. If you have a very large flame, this may be an indication that you need to trim your wick. About 1 inch or 3/4 of an inch is usually the ideal length. If you still have a large flame length, this may be because your wick is too large and you need to wick down. Okay guys, there you have it, my top 10 candle making terms for beginners. I hope you found this useful and it wasn't too rambly. I've tried to put as much information there as possible to help you out. As I promised at the beginning of the video, I do have a glossary which covers everything we spoke about in this video, plus a whole lot more. I suggest you print it out and stick it in your workspace, and if you ever get stuck, you can always refer to it. And I hope you really enjoyed this video and it wasn't too rambly. Please like, comment and subscribe if you want to see more candle making content, and please give suggestions of any videos you'd like to see from me. I'd be happy to do it. I'm really excited. I've got a ton planned, but if you have any other suggestions, let me know, and I'll see you in my next one. See ya, bye.